Chapter 37, Joseph's Dream. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a sojourner in the land of Canaan. 2. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was reared with the sons of Zilpah, and with the sons of Bilhah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought an evil report of them to their father. 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a rich robe with long sleeves. 4. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably to him. 5. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him yet the more. 6. And he said to them, Listen to this dream which I have dreamed. 7. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood around about, and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, Are you indeed going to reign over us? Or are you going to have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. 9. And he dreamed another dream, and he told it to his brothers, and said, Behold, I have dreamed another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowed down to me. 10. And when it was told to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow down ourselves to the ground to you? 11. And his brothers envied him, but his father observed the sayings. 12. And Joseph's brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. 13. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, your brothers are feeding the flocks in Shechem. Come, I will send you to them. And he said to him, Here I am. 14. Then his father said to him, Go see whether it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So Jacob sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. 15. And a certain man found him while he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him and said to him, What are you seeking? 16. And he said, I am seeking my brothers to tell me where they are feeding their flock. 17. And the man said, They have departed from here, for I heard them say, Let's go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. 18. And they saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. 19. And they said to one another, Behold, here comes the dreamer. 20. Come now therefore, and let us slay him and throw him into one of the pits, and then we will say that a wild beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. 21. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said to them, Let us not kill him. 22. And Reuben said to them, Shed no blood, throw him into the pit, this pit that is in the wilderness, but do not harm him, that he might deliver him from their hands, and bring him back to his father. 23. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come to his brothers, they stripped him of the rich robe that he was wearing. 24. And they took him and threw him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. 25. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and behold, a caravan of Arabians coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to carry it down to Egypt. And Joseph sold. 26. And Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Arabians, and let us not harm him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brothers listened to him. 28. Then some Midianite merchants passed by, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and they sold Joseph to the Arabians for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought him to Egypt. "29. And then Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. 30. And he returned to his brothers and said to them, Where is the boy? And as for me, where shall I go? 31. And they took Joseph's robe and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the robe in the blood. 32. And they sent the robe with long sleeves, and they brought it to their father and said, This is what we found. Know now whether it be your son's coat or not. 33. And he recognized it and said, It is my son's coat. A wild beast has devoured him. My son Joseph is surely torn to pieces. 33. And he recognized... 34. Then Jacob tore his robes and put on sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. 35. And all his sons and all his daughters made an effort to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning. And thus his father wept for him. 36. And the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officers, the commander of the guard. 38. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned in to a certain Alamite whose name was Hira. 2. And Judah saw there the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shuha, and he took her and went in unto her. 3. And she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name 4. And she conceived again, and he bore a son, and bore a son, and he called his name Onan. 5. And she conceived again and bore a son, and he called his name Shelah. And after she bore him, she stopped bearing. And 6. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. 7. And Judah's firstborn was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. 8. And Judah said to Onan, Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up an offspring to your brother. 9. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, and it came to pass when he went into his brother's wife that he spilled the semen on the ground, lest that he should raise an offspring to his brother. 10. And the thing which he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. 11. Then said Judah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he said, Lest he die also, as his brothers did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And in the course of time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Judah, died. And Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira the Amalite. And it was told Tamar, saying, Behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnath to his sheep. 14. And she went, put off her widow's dress, and adorned herself, and covered her face with a veil, and sat down at the parting of the road to Timnath, for she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she was not given to him to wife. 15. When Judah saw her, he thought she was her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. 16. And he turned to her by the way and said to her, Come, let me come in unto you, for he did not know Joseph in Egypt. He did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, What will you give me that you may come in unto me? And he said, I will send you a kid from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge until you send it? And he said, What kind of pledge shall I give you? And she said, Your ring and your robe and the staff that is in your hand. So he gave them to her, and he went in unto her, and she conceived by him. 19. And she arose and went away and took off a veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. 20. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Amalite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, but he could not find her. 21. Then he asked the men of the place, saying, Where is the harlot who sat by the parting of the road? And they said, There is no harlot here. 22. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said, No harlot has been here. 23. And Judah said, Let her keep the pledge, lest I be laughed at. Behold, I sent this kid, but you could not find her. 24. And it came to pass about 3 months later that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar your daughter-in-law has played the harlot, and moreover she is with child because of her harlotry. And Judah said, Bring her out, let her be burned. 25. And they brought her out. When they brought her out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, By the man to whom these articles belong, I am with child. And she said, Determine whose they are, the ring, the robe, and the staff. 26. And Judah recognized them, and said, She is more righteous than I, because I did not give her in marriage to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. 27. And it came to pass in time of her travail that, behold, there were twins in her womb. 28. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that one of the babes put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound his hand, upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. 29. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out, and she said, What a breach has been made for you. Therefore his name was called Pharez. 38. And afterward came out his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and she called his name Zara. Chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, commander of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Arabians and brought him down there. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man in the house of his master the Egyptian. 3. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper under his hands. 4. And Joseph found favor in his sight and served him, and he made him steward of his house, and all that he had he put in his charge. 5. And it came to pass from that time that he made him the steward of his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had, both in the house and in the field. 6. And he left all that he had in Joseph's charge, and he did not know what he had except the food that he ate. And Joseph was very handsome and pleasant to look at. 9. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said to him, Lie with me. 8. But he refused and said to his master, Well, behold, my master does not know what he has in his house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. 9. There is no one greater in the house than I, neither has he kept back anything, Joseph interprets dreams, anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? 10. And it came to pass that she spoke to him daily, he did not listen to her to lie with her or be with her. 11. And it came to pass one day that Joseph went into the house to do his work, and one of the men of the household, and none of the men of the household were there in the house. 12. And she caught him by the garment and said to him, Lie with me. But he left the garment in her hands and fled and got out to the street. 13. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hands, and fled out into the street. 14. She called to the men of the household and said to them, See, he has brought in a Hebrew servant to us to disgrace us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. 15. And when he had heard that I had lifted up my voice, he cried aloud. He left his garment in my hands and fled and got out to the street. 16. And she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. 17. And she spoke to him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to disgrace me. 18. But as I lifted up my voice and cried aloud, he left his garment in my hands and fled and got out to the street. 19. And when his master heard the words of his wife, which he spoke to him, saying, After this manner did your servant to me, his wrath was kindled. "20. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he remained there in the prison. 21. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. 22. And the keeper of the prison entrusted to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison, and he was in charge of whatever they did there. 23. The keeper of the prison did not look to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things that the chief butler of the king of Egypt and the chief baker offended their lord the king of Egypt. 2. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. 3. And he put them into the prison in the house of the commander of the guard, in the ward where Joseph was bound. 4. And the commander of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they remained for some time in the prison. 5. And they both dreamed, each man his own dream in the same night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, whom were bound in the prison. 6. And Joseph came into them in the morning, and saw them, and behold, they were sad. 7. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in the prison of his master, saying, Why do you look so sad today? 8. And they said to him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret. And Joseph said to them, Behold, the interpretations belong to God. Tell them to me. 9. Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. 10. And in the vine were 3 branches, and when it budded, its blossom shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. 11. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hands. Pharaoh has dreams. 12. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of your dream. The 3 branches are 3 days. 13. After 3 days Pharaoh shall remember you and restore you to your position, and you shall give Pharaoh's cup into his hand, as you did before when you were his butler. 14. But remember me when it shall be well with you, and do me a favor and justice, and make mention of me in the presence of Pharaoh, and bring me out of this prison house. 15. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the prison. 16. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, I also saw in my dream, and behold, I had 3 baskets containing white bread on my head. 17. And in the uppermost basket there was every kind of food for Pharaoh prepared by a baker, and the birds of prey were eating it out of the basket on my head. 18. And Joseph answered and said to him, This is the interpretation of your dream. The 3 baskets are 3 days. 19. After 3 days Pharaoh shall have you beheaded, and then shall crucify you on a tree, and the birds of prey shall eat the flesh from off you. 20. And it came to pass on the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a banquet for all his servants, and he remembered the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants. 21. And restored the chief butler to his position, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hands. But he crucified the chief, 22. But he crucified the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. 23. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him.